The big talking point of the card is obviously that Conor Benn returns to action this evening. In fact, it's exactly 1 year to the day that he found out about his second failed performance-enhancing drug test as per VADA, 23rd of September 2022. It's now obviously 2023, and after a year of kind of being none the wiser, he's back in action tonight. We've obviously spoken about it on a couple of occasions throughout the course of the week and gauged reaction with many fans that have been interacting with us on the social network here at talkSPORT. Carl's obviously alongside us. I know you've been keeping across it throughout the course of the week, Carl, the whole thing with Conor Benn. What have you made of everything this week and him actually being back in action tonight with what many would say a cloud still hanging over him?
Yeah, I think his team have had to. They're in a position where they've got to get him out. 18 months is too long for a prospect, and that's what he is. He's never held a title, area level, British title, Commonwealth, anything even. He's not got to that level yet, and he's tried to put himself in world title contention by mentioning big names. I know the Chris Eubank Jr fight is the big one in terms of there's probably some money in that rather than any titles, because it won't be a real bigly ranked part. I know Eubank Jr did well against Liam Smith, but still no titles. So that's a fight that will make money and will drum up a lot of interest. But it'd be a shame if that's the only thing he's talking about and it's the only place he wants to go, because what he needs to do is he needs to get his border control licence and start his career back in Britain and getting the British public behind him, the lovers and the haters, because he's got both now. And if he has to play the bad guy for a little bit, then so be it. Let him be the bad guy. He probably won't like it, but that's the position he's put himself in now. So I've got nothing against him fighting in Florida. It's a warm-up fight, it's a tune-up, it's going to be like a sparring session. It just gets him out there and keeps him busy, but he's got to get rid of that dark cloud that's hanging over him, because nobody's going to take him seriously, and the haters, they're not going to go away.
Would you have preferred him to have got rid of that cloud before he stepped back into the ring, though?
Absolutely, but it's just taking too long. Eddie Hearn said that they've appealed the decision. They've appealed the appeal, or they're waiting for this hearing on the appeal that he's allowed to fight, and there's so much confusion and red tape and hoops to jump through between the UKAD and the British Boxing Order Control and the licensing and the governing bodies that you kind of don't know whether you're coming or going. And then there's people saying that Conor Benn's actually been cleared. Well, actually, he's not been cleared because he hasn't got a British
narrative they put out.
Exactly. So they put a narrative together that's kind of trying to trick people. And the people who understand boxing realise they're not being tricked. You're not pulling the wool over anybody's eyes.
Yeah.
Sit in front of the border control, take your punishment, and then let's move on with your career. That's what's got to happen for him to be accepted back in Britain, as far as I'm concerned.
But to clarify it, that they're working, that he's coming back tonight based on jurisdiction, even though there is an appeal in from UKAD and the Boxing Border Control. They haven't done strict liability in the due process with the story of the clomiphene.
Yeah, a technicality means you can fight.
Yeah, exactly. He's circumvented the process. But you're talking about him sitting in front of the board, not based around jurisdiction, but using the medical evidence they believe they have to say it wasn't clomiphene as a pill, it was from a food consumption, which they say they've got evidence to do. If you have to take your 2-year ban, you're out till April next year, and that's life.
These things aren't going to happen, though. Let's be dead straight about it, right?
The system, fight Eubank in December, and that's the way it'll go.
As Carl was alluding to there, the system is broken. So therefore, you've got a situation where you're able to navigate certain ways to get around, and that's why we're finding ourselves in a situation tonight where Conor Benn is fighting in Florida, licensed by Texas. But as Carl rightfully says, for me, he doesn't hold any commercial value outside of the UK. So therefore, he has to, in order to fight here in the UK, right whatever wrong it is with the British Boxing Border Control, get his licence back, get back on British soil, and listen, I've no problem with him making that fight with Eubank, unless it's as long as the cloud has been lifted.
Here's one for you. With the mess that's gone on here, and Conor Benn still not clearing his name, still failing those 2 tests, still not proving his innocence there, and like you say, jurisdiction, technicalities, they had the suspension lifted, not cleared his name. What happens, God forbid, he boxes out there and something horrible happens in that contest? What happens then with this dark cloud that's still hanging over?
Well, he'll come forward with the evidence then that it's
shouldn't be boxing, that's the point.
He
should not be boxing.
You just asked the question I'm answering.
I think it's worth pointing out that he has passed 2 drugs tests since the failing that one. So he has passed the drug test to fight in this instance. But I know what you're saying. If he has been cheating, what physicality?
If he does hurt the guy irreparably tonight, they'll come forward with the evidence they say they already have, and then he will clear his name.
It's too late.
Yes,
it is too late.
I agree. The sport in the mainstream will be dragged through the mud tomorrow morning.
We have been discussing this since October last year. I think they've made a lot of bad decisions in the way they've gone about it.
Of course.
And they can't backtrack from where they are. They've won on technicalities the whole time, on legalese, on employing very expensive lawyers. And Eddie Hearn even said it himself. Conor has spent hundreds of thousands of pounds in the last 10 months on lawyers, and he needs to work again. None of us begrudge him fighting. All of us want him to see him do well. We all love the legend that his father was. We all saw the rise. Before this happened, arguably outside the heavyweights, he was the biggest rising star in the UK, one of the biggest stars of Eddie Hearn's stable.
But it's the most exciting prospect. Yeah,
absolutely.
I'd agree with that. What is the script? Just for people that don't fully understand it, do you understand it? If he does go in front of the board and he gets a 2-year ban,
till next April,
does that get backdated at all?
No,
well,
but that is the backdating.
It can be.
Right,
that is the backdating.
So that's how it works.
But I think they didn't want to wait for 2 years, and that's the narrative they took. There's been a lot of mistakes in this. He should have come out in the very beginning, and he could have been fighting. I think it would have been next April. Take his ban. Other fighters have taken their ban, and that's what
it's
happens.
been a PR disaster. The way they've dealt with it has been an absolute mess.
I think it's fair to say he's been really badly advised. He's not done it himself, and to be honest, he's saying that the drugs test is contamination. It's because of food consumption, but let's say it's not, because it's highly unlikely that that's happened, because that's not usually the case.
That wasn't his first argument, though.
No.
His first argument was that there was a flaw in the testing process. That's what he originally argued.
And then
it was the WBC that came back and told him that it was.
I don't like how it's Conor Benn or the fighter that is always the one that's under the cosh. What about his team? And I'm not pulling his team in the firing line, but he's got a nutritionist. He's got a manager.
Absolutely.
They'll all be advising.
He's not done it on his own.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So I feel like people should be held accountable, and there should be a conversation between the team and the board of control and get it ironed out. Because if they sit down around a table, they will get it ironed out and it will be sorted.
Yeah, but if you've got metabolites in your system that belong to a banned substance list, if you've taken them because of a supplement, then you need to register all the supplements. The professionals who do that, who advise the boxer, know that. And if you have made a mistake and cheated, you admit it and take your ban. And if you think there's a problem with the system, you present your evidence. Don't you remember, for 6 months, all of us speaking to the Boxing Board of Control, they said, we're waiting for them to come forward. Speak to Eddie Hearn, he's saying, the board don't want to carry on with it, we're waiting. Everybody is to blame for this, I'm afraid. And it's become a bigger story than just Conor Benn and Eddie Hearn. It's a very serious issue in our sport that's inherently dangerous.
So let's look at this, and we highlighted this yesterday. There's an appeal in at the moment with the British Boxing Board of Control in UKAD, right? So let's say, and 9 times out of 10 in legal processes like that, the appeal is not going to be overturned. So the jurisdiction from the independent panel was that you cannot rule on this test that you have not collected, is basically what has happened. That is why we've not been able to go forward. So the Board of Control put their appeal in. They're probably not going to win it, so therefore we're all going to be able to move forward and Conor Benn's going to be able to fight again. What happens next year when, I don't know, Johnny Bloggs fails his test and he says, hang on a minute, it's a VADA test. You don't have jurisdiction here.
Catman, this is the problem.
So you've let Conor off, so let me off.
The system has failed, and if the system fails, then everything needs changing. I mean, this is a huge thing. Like you say, Conor Benn is just, he's the eye of the storm here, but it's much bigger than this. This goes much bigger than this, because moving forward, if they don't sort this out now, moving forward, it's going to be a complete mess.
And also, because there's no world's governing body, and all the commissions in the world don't fight under or portray things under one umbrella. Texas licensed him, he can fight in Florida. I wondered whether they consulted with the Boxing Board of Control over the fact, could he go and have a fight?
Well, it's irrelevant. He doesn't hold a licence here, so it's irrelevant. That is nonsense. That is just a smoke screen that's been put out there that we've spoken to the Board of Control, so it's okay. No, he doesn't have a licence here, so the Board of Control can't actually affect him to do anything.
No, but the Board of Control have actually come out, haven't they, and said in the last 48 hours, no, we don't agree with this.
They don't agree with it, and they said that he can't fight on this soil until he sorts it out, and they're presenting to the British Boxing Board of Control, and they're satisfied. So they've gone and, like you say, you're right in what you say, Adam.
But think about this.
He doesn't hold a licence, so they can't do anything.
But there's plenty of fighters that don't hold British licences, but hold licences elsewhere, but do fight in Britain. Tyson Fury's one. He's got a Vegas licence, but he fights here in the UK.
But the British Boxing Board of Control have to give him permission.
Absolutely. But if they don't win their appeal, On what grounds can you stop then Conor Benn on a Texas license fighting in the UK? What grounds can you do that? You can't. So therefore, I strongly believe that after this mess is kind of sorted, I think you're going to get Eubank
They'll
Benn
challenge it.
I think you're going to get Eubank Benn on British soil because you can't stop it.
It's possible. They can't do the Luxembourg thing that Frank Warren, the promoter of tonight's event, did with David Hay and Derek Chisora when they didn't have British licenses after the scrap.
But if they don't win
Munich.
their appeal, how can they stop Conor Benn fighting on British soil?
Well, they don't have to license him. They do not have to agree. I don't mean license. They can
But on
say,
what grounds?
They can say we've got an appeal in against him.
Yeah,
fighting.
but they've lost. I've just said let's say they've lost the
If they've
appeal.
lost the appeal, well, they can't do anything about it. But it's still a process of circumvention and narrative arc.
Yeah.
And the narrative arc is my guy's innocent. The board for Conor Benn, the board have got it in for him the whole time. I mean, some of the stuff that's come out is absolute claptrap. If Robert Smith's tonight, when I go wandering with a microphone, I will try and speak to him about this situation tonight.